So hello everyone. Thank you for being here for our April workshop. And before we started today's workshop, I just want to share with you that we have successfully had 2 workshops this semester in February and March. And we appreciate all your support and your feedback. And so feel free to check the videos on our YouTube channel and follow us on the social media that lists on the right side. And we post food related knowledge and foodie pictures from our graduate students weekly. So if you have pictures, send us to our email address. And so for today's workshop, we are very honored to have Dr. Policastro to do a Q&A session. And she will answer any questions related to the health and nutrition. And then now I will let my co-chair Nat to give you some background information about Dr. Policastro.
Hello. Okay. So Dr. Peggy Policastro is an RDN. She is the director of the Culinary Nutrition Program at Rutgers University. She harnesses the mechanisms of behavioral economics to nudge individuals towards healthier food choices. She also believes in making a healthy food choice the easiest and most salient option, and is the most effective way to encourage behavior change. Her research findings showed that just posting a simple calorie message about sugar-sweetened beverages increased water sales by approximately 6% over 7 weeks. So just bringing awareness helps a lot. Dr. Policastro is a registered dietitian, as I said, an RDN, who was named the 2012 Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics Nutrition Educator of the Year, and was recently named the 2020 Top Women in Metro New York Food Services and Hospitality Education category. Peggy also holds a PhD in interdisciplinary studies of nutritional science and psychology from Rutgers as well. So she has been part of Rutgers a very long time, from her education to now her current position. And we're very excited to have her. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for that nice introduction. And I'm welcome to be here, happy to be here as well. So when I was first contacted by Natalie and asked what I wanted to speak about, I said it was really up to you guys. And then it was asked, how do you want to present? And I said, we are all zoomed out. We don't want to watch another presentation. If you're anything like me, I'm just tired of it. After the while, my eyes are killing me. So I said, let's make this less formalized and just open it up to Q&A and see where the discussion goes from there. So today is really about picking my brain and asking those burning questions that you have. And I will use my 35 years of experience in the field of nutrition to hopefully answer them for you. A little more background on myself before we go on. I have worked in clinical nutrition. I worked right at St. Peter's Medical Center as a clinical nutritionist. I worked in the community, teaching people just how to eat well over the years. And I have also worked a lot with corporate nutrition, but my home has been at Rutgers for the past 25 or so years. I worked in student affairs and health services and counseled students on nutrition. And then I moved over to the Department of Nutritional Sciences, where I was teaching classes in nutrition. And most recently working at the IFNH, the Institute for Food, Nutrition, and Health, as the director of culinary nutrition. But at the same time, I maintain my association with dining services as the director of the nutrition intervention there, but also to use the campus dining halls and eating establishments as my living laboratories. So using a lot of what's here right at Rutgers to study people's food habits. So go ahead. What do you got for me? You're on mute.
Yes, I'm muted. So we already collected some questions for you. And I think our attendees will have more questions for you later.
Mm-hmm.
So our first question, how can we maintain healthy eating behaviors when met with imminent deadlines or highly variable schedules during the week? As our graduate students, we're very busy. So how do we maintain healthy eating habits?
Great question. It's really, really hard when we're busy because we put nutrition and health to the side. But what I can suggest and what's really helped for those that I've worked with and also myself is to pre-plan. Use some time on the weekend or a day during the week when you're not as busy to plan out your week ahead. Because research shows that if you're waiting until you're hungry to eat, you're probably not making the best decisions at that point too. So the one thing I can say is pre-prep, pre-prep, pre-prep. Some things that I do, I follow a varied diet, mostly plant-based, but I also have, meats in my diet as well. As simple as getting a rotisserie chicken or a block of tofu and making that in some way. Have your protein made. That way you can add it into fresh vegetables or even frozen vegetables. Have that protein in a pre-prep form and then just add some of your vegetables into there. I'll make it so much easier. But think about your week ahead. And that's probably the best advice I can give is to pre-plan.
Okay, thank you for that elaboration. So do you have like any tips? Like you already said, like prepare like tofu or chicken, and so add them to vegetables, or do you have like specific tips for them?
Okay, what I suggest too is keeping your pantry stocked with non-perishables like beans, okay, cans of beans. You don't have to buy fresh, you can just buy canned and rinse them off. You'll wash off a lot of the sodium, different types of beans. I also like to have even bagged salads, those salad kits in-house. That way you can have those and add beans, chicken, tofu to that and have a meal with that. I'm pleasantly surprised now too at some of the more healthy options that places like Trader Joe's has. They have some burgers that are there that have a pretty good nutritional profile in the frozen section. And some of their frozen items are pretty good. Look at the labels when you're looking at the things there to make sure that there's not a lot of additives. They're pretty clean ingredients, as we call them. So again, rotisserie chicken. I'm a big fan of that. I think you can use it in, a meal to add some vegetables with. You can use it later to, as a sandwich. You could even save whatever's left of the carcass and make a chicken broth out of it and some soup. I'm a big fan of, having that tofu prepared and also having those beans, different types, because that protein portion is what's going to take you the longest to make. And then add that to either box salad or bag salads or some steamed vegetables that you can throw in the microwave and throw maybe some seasonings on there. One thing that I find is that people feel that healthy eating is tasteless. So it's really important to use great seasonings when you're cooking as well. So, take a chance and use some of the blends of seasonings that are out there. A little olive oil. Olive oil should be a staple in the house as well. Add that to some vegetables, throw some seasonings on there, roast them in the oven at 425 for 20 minutes, and they're great. And that'll give a lot of seasoning and flavor to the different foods that you're having.
Thank you so much for your useful tips. And we have other questions. Nat, do you want to cover the slides?
Yeah, so other questions that we received include, what are the benefits of a vegan diet? Does vegetarian work as well, or is vegan preferred in some cases? And we'll get to the second question. The third question is not as related, so you can go ahead, tackle the second question.
Sure. There's a way to make any diet healthy or unhealthy. A flexitarian omnivore diet can be very healthy, as can a vegan diet, but a vegan diet can also be very unhealthy. It's full of processed foods that can be high in trans fat, sodium, etc. So the key is, I think in my book, is eat what you enjoy the most. If you want to follow a vegan diet, great. If you want to follow more of a flexitarian diet, that's great too. But what we do know is that foods or a diet that tends to be more plant-based is the healthiest way to go. A plant-based diet includes a lot more, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and less animal protein. So you can have a different, spectrum along the way of having, different types of animal protein, not having any animal protein, but having eggs and maybe some dairy in there, or you could go with full vegan diet. But the key is to have a balance and to make sure the foods that you're including in that diet are nutritionally sound and have a really good nutrition profile. So as I said, a vegan diet, if you're choosing, vegan donuts for your meals, it's not healthy. But if you're having a stir fry with a little bit of beef in it and mostly all vegetables, that's healthy. So I don't think we can define the benefits of a diet more than we could define the benefits of eating habits. And the benefit of eating habits would be more plant forward and mostly plants in your food, in your meals. So again, food isn't just about health too, it's about enjoying. And if you're choosing a diet because you think it's beneficial for you, but you're not enjoying it, you're not going to stay on it. So you have to find a really good balance of what you enjoy, but having those items that we know may not be as healthy, processed foods, a lot of red meat, in moderation. And if anyone wants to ask questions as a follow-up to what I'm saying and have it as a discussion here, I'm happy to hear you interject as well.
So I have a kind of a follow-up to that,
Sure.
just based on diets in general. So I like to eat different foods all the time. I hate eating the same food constantly. That's why, you were mentioning preparing things ahead of time, but for me, that's difficult because then I end up eating the same thing 3 times in a row because you made, that portion size or whatever. So do you have any suggestions to ways to find inspiration, maybe, to sort of mix up your diet so you don't get bored eating the same, types of things? There's only so many ways you can make, the 3 vegetables that you can think of off the top of your head, for example.
Sure. What I suggest is experiment with different vegetables. Think in your mind, okay, every week I want to try at least or have a variety of maybe 7 different vegetables or fruits and work it like that. You go to the grocery store, instead of just getting broccoli, cauliflower, and carrots, look at the Brussels sprouts, venture out maybe into maybe bok choy. So don't buy the standards because then you're going to go to them. Try some of the other things. And no matter what vegetable you get, you can roast it. There's very rare that you can't roast a vegetable. So again, very easy. A little olive oil, mix it up, put some seasoning on there. Again, not to promote Trader Joe's, but I really like their seasoning blends too. I like to use their garlic salt one, their citrus ones, the elote, a lot of them I think are great. You can get them in various stores as well, but I think they're the most reasonable. Putting that on vegetables. Just a difference in the seasonings will make you feel like you're eating something different too, even if it's not totally in a different item. And you mentioned that you make something one day and you have to eat it for 3 days. Things don't go bad that fast. They truly don't. You can keep some, again, I'm going to go back to my rotisserie chicken. You can buy that and use it one day and not have it till maybe 3 days later, and it's still fine. As long as it's not out more than 2 to 3 hours and you keep it in a refrigerator that's at least 32 degrees or between 32 and 40 degrees, you'll be good. So you don't have to eat something 3 days in a row. You can make something on the weekend and then spread it out. So if you make 2 things, spread it out, or 3 things, spread it out, and maybe have some variety there with your vegetables. What I would suggest, fresh or frozen, don't buy the standards for a while. Look and see what other things are there and buy them instead and roast them. Even beets, you roast them for 25, around 20 minutes, seasonings, and you're good to go. Brussels sprouts, asparagus, any of those things, fresh or frozen, have pretty much the same nutritional profile, and add those to your diet.
Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, I have a roast chicken that's half eaten in the fridge because we all thought it was bad after 2 or 3 days.
As long as
So
it's in
we
the
gotta eat
refrigerator, you
that.
can keep it there a week. It's fine, really fine.
That's good to know.
Yeah. The most important thing is that you keep it refrigerated. If
Yes.
you leave it out, then it's not. No, you can have it.
Awesome.
I just want to comment that what I have been doing is I really do a big portion for the meat, for the protein, and I will frozen some of them so I can have it in next week. So it's kind of different meals every day for this week. But yeah, some varies.
I really like the idea of the different seasonings too. So mix up the vegetables and add different seasonings. That's a great idea. Because I always go to salt and pepper, which gets boring after a while, right?
Those seasonings in the jar are great. The other thing I like a lot too are some of the sauces that they have. Again, I'll go to Wegmans because it's close to me, but you can go to any grocery store and they have sauces in jars, like a pesto sauce. add that, a few tablespoons of that into something, and it totally changes just having chicken and vegetables. It changes the flavor of it as well. So I really like sauces and spices to change things around. That way, even if you have the same thing, it just gives it different types of flavors you're having too.
And then just on that note, I suppose as well, what do you think about, there's so many different kinds of sauces. There's some that they say are healthier, low sodium, or, certain things removed, certain things added, maybe. What is the sort of general consensus on that? If you're eating it on vegetables and, you're not being crazy with whatever you're putting on there, is that still okay to eat, what might be tastier but slightly unhealthy? Or should you be super, super careful with, whatever you're adding to your vegetables as well?
Enjoy what you add. I'm not promoting all fried vegetables, but adding
Right.
seasonings and sauces that may have a little extra sodium in it is fine. The key then is to watch or drink a lot of water and avoid processed foods. Most of the sodium or salt in our diet is really from processed foods. And when I talk about processed foods, it's things that have a really long shelf life, like Cheetos and Doritos and stuff like that. Not so much sauces. If you're going to get some sodium, get it in your sauces. If you're going to get some, salt in your diet, get it from your spices. That's totally fine. Our biggest problem, I think, with health really deals with processed foods. Everything I've seen over the years too, the one thing that's always remained is by buying non-processed foods and maybe adding things to it, you will always be better than buying something processed. So adding adding sauces or seasonings to plain vegetables will be perfectly fine. But buying, a frozen TV dinner and the vegetables are plain, not so good because there's all that processing in there. So enjoy your flavors, your seasonings, add a lot of those spices in. I also like to use spices to change the ethnic profile that's in there too. Instead of having to go out and buy, Indian food, I'll get those spices in a ground masala and add some things to that as well. So experiment with sauces and spices and, roast your vegetables. It's probably the easiest thing to do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And I have an extra comment on that note, like trying to obviously add some variety and flavor to your vegetables. You can kind of do the same thing with rice. I know in my household, I come from Hispanic heritage, and then my roommate comes from Indian heritage, and there's just so many different ways to prepare rice with all the different types of Indian spices, and then you can prepare it more like with beans or something for a more Spanish profile, and then we even do more like Chinese Asian kind of fried rice style. It's just rice is a great staple if you want to add vegetables to that too, and then get some flavor variety.
Exactly. And you could do different types of rice. You could use basmati rice, jasmine rice, you could do brown rice. You want a little white rice thrown in there once in a while too. There's all different types of grains. And you don't have to buy them and let them soak for hours. Look for ones that, in a bag you can throw in the microwave. It's fine. It really is. Because I think the problem some people have is there's such black and white thought with nutrition. Either I have to do everything perfect or I'm just going to eat garbage. Where it's better to eat something that is easy to make, that's healthier, than going to all the processed stuff instead. So look through that, look through that grain aisle in the grocery store, and you don't need to buy it and have it soak, etc. You can definitely, buy something that is in a bag, you throw in the microwave, and then add other things to it.
All right, thank you. If no one has any more on that topic, I can ask the third question. I'll give everyone a second if you wanted to stay on this topic.
Any other tips that people have? Did anyone try the spice blends from Trader Joe's at all, or from any of your grocery stores?
Oh, wait, Ricardo has some.
I was just going to say, I like that you mentioned the rotisserie chicken, because sometimes I feel like when I'm grocery shopping, it's the biggest day that I don't want to go home and cook, especially if it's on a work day. Like, it's the easiest day to be like, I'm already out and about, let's order something. So I think rotisserie kind of has been a easy go-to just say like, okay, it's already done. All I got to do is just like make a salad with it. So I like that you said that.
Yeah, I do that a lot. I just have the rotisserie chickens, cut it up a little bit. I'll throw a little bit of like a spoonful of pesto sauce in there, and then, have some vegetables on the side, and I'm good to go. And the next day I may have it cut up in like a chicken salad and throw some grapes in there too, and use it with a little bit of mayo. So I love looking in the refrigerator and just making something up from what I have. I'm an economical shopper, but I also never like to throw food away. I'm one of those people that I feel really bad if I throw food away. So I make stocks out of vegetables that I cut. Like whenever I will use celery or carrots, I keep all those scraps in a bag in the freezer, and I wash them off and then throw them into a pot of water and make vegetable stock. And then I'll add that to some of my rice or so forth. Just feel like it's my way of, being more sustainable.
That's awesome. That is a really, really good idea, because sometimes I do have things that I look at it and I say, okay, you might have a day left. And, if tomorrow, my last day, is a busy day for me, how am I going to use that up? So just tossing it in a bag to freeze it for a future. That's a really good idea. Thank you.
Yeah. I do that a lot too with the rotisserie chicken. Once it's done, I'll throw it in a pot of water and make chicken stock out of it and just keep that. And then in the wintertime, if you want to just boil up some noodles or rice and throw it in there, you have your chickens, and you could put in a frozen bag of carrots and peas or whatever you want. Get some homemade chicken soup. So it's nice to do that too. When, instead of throwing that chicken carcass away, you feel like, oh, I did something else with it. It's good.
Yeah, nice. That's really creative. I was also going to say, if you want to keep your anything that's not meat based, any other food scraps, like Rutgers has a compost that you can add to, and you can bring all your food scraps there, again, that are not meat based.
Where is that located, Natalie?
It's on Cook campus. It's near the there's the farm on one side of the road, and then on the other side you have the Rutgers gardens area, the organic garden for actually making food. And then there's the compost kind of far back from there. If you look up the Rutgers Compost Club, they'll have a description with where to go. And they have a club for this.
Great, good for that.
Okay, let's quickly get to question number 3. What is the best way to increase good cholesterol, or HDL?
Sure. Just a little background. There are 3 major cholesterols that we speak about. One is your total cholesterol, and that's usually the number that the doctor gives you. You want that less than 200. And then we have HDL and LDL. HDL stands for high density lipoproteins. LDL stands for low density lipoproteins. If you don't remember that, think of HDL as highly desirable and LDL is low desirable. That's why I usually tell people that sometimes have a hard time remembering. So we want less HDL, we want less LDL. So we want that under 135, and we want high HDL. Now we get LDL cholesterol from our diet, from trans fats, from saturated fat. That's going to raise your LDL. But the good news is that the type of cholesterol, HDL, we want more of, that kind of counter-interacts that LDL. So if you have a lot of HDL and less LDL, less risk of heart disease. So the question, why do you want to increase that, makes sense, because you want to increase the good and decrease the bad. So how do you increase HDL? The bad news is there's no foods that have HDL in them. So you can't eat something to increase your HDL, but there are things you can do. One is exercise. By exercising, you increase your HDL. Okay, so that's really good. And the second thing, if you're above weight, by losing weight, your HDL will go up as well. So at this point in your life, it would be a good idea to get something called a lipid profile test. And this lipid profile test will give you your total cholesterol, and then it'll break down into HDL, LDL, and something called VLDL. And VLDL is related to the triglycerides. Triglycerides are another fat in the blood that high levels can lead to heart disease. And triglycerides, again, if you're above weight, your triglycerides are going to be higher. They come from fatty foods. They come from simple sweets and sugars, and they also come from alcohol. Okay, so those things increase VLDL. So increasing HDL, to answer the question, exercise, and if you're above weight, lose weight. The other thing I recommend is that get a lipid profile. What they find too is that people that are on pretty good shape as far as their BMI and their lipid profile in their 20s will probably have an easier time throughout the rest of their life maintaining their weight and maintaining their health. There may be dips in that where your weight may go up. You may have times that cholesterol goes up, but it's going to be easier for you if you maintained a good BMI and a good lipid profile in your 20s. So something to think about. So get a benchmark now of what it is. That way you can compare it later on. Because right now you could have high total cholesterol and not know it if you've never had it checked. It could be something that runs in your family. So then you get it checked when you're in your 40s because you're going for this exam and it's really high, but it could have been high all along. So it's really great to have that benchmark at, in your 20s or early 30s. That way you have what to compare it to as you get older.
All right, thank you. Very good advice. Okay, I don't remember if we have a question after this. Oh, Iwa, you muted?
Yes, we have some questions like asked before, but I would like to open the windows for our attendees if they have like more questions.
So I guess I had another question based on the cholesterol that we were just kind of talking about. So I read an interesting article a couple of weeks ago about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and how that's sort of becoming a pandemic in the United States, for example. I mean, I know you're not a medical doctor, so I can't ask for medical advice.
So was it related? Was related to high fructose corn syrup?
They didn't say specifically what it was related to. So I was curious if you have come across anything in your training and in your experience, just with the United States culture and our diets that might be causing this sort of increased prevalence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Sure. They feel that it relates to, I'm going to put on my science hat now. They feel that this overabundance in incidence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is really due to insulin resistance, which is causing the liver to appear as you would if you're alcoholic or not. And so what they're finding is causing this insulin resistance is the United States being above weight. It's not a surprise that over the years, we have greater incidence in overweight and obesity than we ever did before. So there seems to be a correlation between that and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. That's why I asked if it was related to the increased use of high fructose corn syrup. So we're also finding it's a correlation that when high fructose corn syrup became introduced into the United States, we also saw a rise in this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So what can we do about it? Maintain a good weight. That is the most important thing. The way we prevent insulin resistance is by being at a good weight. The reason that we become resistant towards insulin our body produces, and insulin's used to keep our blood sugar at bay, is the reason we become resistant is that our fat cells become enlarged when we gain weight. And with this enlargement of the fat cells, the insulin has a much harder time getting in there to bring down the blood sugar. It's just very, very simply put. So the best thing we can do then is to maintain a good weight. It really very much always goes back to a good BMI, a good BMI, a good BMI. You don't see as much of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You don't see as much of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, unless someone is above weight. So, that BMI of 18 to 25 is where you want to be.
Can I ask a question kind of on that a little bit? And I have a question, but it's like not really related to a lot of the stuff we were talking about, but I just figured while we have you, when I saw your name, I figured you might be great to ask. So at this point in my career, I'm really trying to just familiarize myself with everything in the field that I feel like I should know. And one of those things I think is really important is like intuitive eating. And personally, I have not done enough looking into it yet to be that familiar with it. But the reason I'm talking about this is because I just noticed myself kind of like, in a way, like fat phobia is just so common every day, and looking at it in both ways, when you compliment people for losing weight, there we go, you're looking at their visual. And I had a discussion with a fellow student who works at an eating disorder center. She hates BMI 100%. I don't know enough about it to know the background, but from your experience, how do you, as a nutrition professional, how do you go about like working with fellow health colleagues that, might not be aware of that, or folks that, doctors or health professionals that, might make comments that, from a nutrition perspective might not be appropriate,
No, really good
yeah,
question.
just curious.
Really good question. I think that, as I say, being at a good weight is important, but it also is very important of how we address it, because we don't know the baggage or the background that someone may bring to the table when they're coming to you for an evaluation. So again, it goes back to motivational interviewing. I've learned as well not to say to someone, oh, you look great, you lost weight, because losing weight and looking great shouldn't always go together. Think about it. You can lose weight if you have cancer. Someone can have an eating disorder. It's really a trigger in many ways. So I think a better response would be like, oh, wow, you look really healthy. So healthy is a better thing to use. For example, say someone is recovering from an eating disorder and you say to them, oh, wow, you gained some weight. You look great. That's going to be a trigger. You say to someone, oh, you lost weight. So when they gain weight, it's going to be a trigger. So health, though, you look healthy is never a bad thing. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think that weight has to be addressed on multiple levels. So if someone goes to a physician and they say to them, you've gained 20 pounds, you're putting yourself at risk for diabetes, blah, blah, blah. We have to educate those people to refer to not only a nutritionist, but maybe a counselor as well. Because weight isn't always about, or most likely isn't about overeating. A lot of times weight is a reflection of other things that are going on in your life. So someone could be struggling in a lot of different ways, and their weight can either go up or go down as a result of it. So it's looking at it from a medical perspective, from the physical medical, saying, yes, you're above weight, it's not healthy. But from the emotional or mental health perspective, we need to get at why. What's the why behind there's been a big weight change? Why does someone want to lose weight? Why does someone want to gain weight? Because if we don't get at those, then you're going to play that yo-yo dieting in there as well. So when I ever counsel someone, it really starts out motivational interviewing. So tell me why you're here. I want to lose weight. Well, why do you want to lose weight? What have you done about this before? What do you think your barriers are? What are some things you think you can do? Is someone telling you to do this, or is it something that on your own you want to do? So you really get at that more than just saying, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this. So Ricardo, to answer your question, how do we address that as nutrition professionals? We watch our words, using that you look healthy. And then really, if we're going into any of the counseling, to really get at the reasons why. And if you start to work with any physicians, you really promote them referring. They don't have the time to sit and talk to someone about their diet or their mental health at that point. Every time someone is above or below weight, they should probably be referred to nutritionists and a counselor as well. There's a lot of other things within there.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the questions, and thank you for answering that, Dr. Policastro. And I also think those questions can be also asked to ourselves, like when we want to make changes. Is it from our end, or is it just because we are hearing what others thinking? So I think that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I think
societal norms as well.
Well,
yep.
I kind of was thinking this, exactly that, I really think that those type of languages is really almost a systemic thing where it's common. And even if, I have children and I teach my children that they could go to school and, it's common in our society to, make comments like that. So,
yeah.
Hopefully in the future, things are on its way to, denormalize that. Sorry.
Exactly. There's so much packed into there too. It's a reason people are harassed. There's so much into that whole weight stigma, etc. We talk to each other like, oh, you're so thin, you're so lucky. Things like that. It just makes me crazy when I hear stuff like that, or someone who is thin will say, oh, I'm so fat. I feel so fat, where they're really, really thin. And just using weight as a way to describe ourselves. So yes, medically, a good BMI is important, But on the other end of it, we want to see how we approach that when someone isn't at a good BMI.
I have a more specific question still on this topic. What do you do if you don't have to help someone else with their health in terms of weight? If you don't have much authority in their mind over them, I was like, specifically if it's like your parents or something. You know,
Sure,
like
sure,
they don't
sure.
wanna listen to you.
Yeah, no, that's hard, definitely hard. CAPS on Rutgers campus that's available to students, they have sessions on how to help someone else. And it's really interesting to go maybe for 1 or 2 sessions to find out how can I help someone who has this? And they have really good suggestions for that. I've sat with them, I am involved with them. And some of the takeaways that I've received from them is that it's not up to you or to me or to anyone to change someone's behavior. All you really need to do is tell them the resources that are available and that you support them. Then it's up to them to make the changes. With anything, you can't lead you can't make a water or a horse, you can lead a horse to water, but can't make them drink type of thing. That's the thing. In that you can say to some, if you're ever interested in losing weight, I have some really good resources, and say, I'll support you, whatever you want to do, but you can't make someone do something until they're ready to do it. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the stages of change, pre-contemplation, contemplation, all that you studied before. And we're all in different levels for every type of behavior we have. Organization, eating, smoking, drinking, driving, a lot of different things. We want to change things in our life of how we do stuff, but we aren't always at that action stage. Sometimes we're just thinking about it. I want to clean out my closets. I'm probably in that pre-contemplation stage. Maybe I'll move to the action stage with that. But everything or every task we have, we probably are on that stages of change mode. So you need to meet someone where that's at. And if someone is just starting to think about it, you provide resources. If someone is in action, then tell them where they can go for something like that. But you can't make someone do something. It's not your job. That's just not going to work sometimes. Yeah.
That's fair. That's a good point. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions from anyone?
So I can ask another one. So another thing I see a lot around now is, the frequency with which you should or shouldn't be eating, depending on whether you're on a diet or not a diet, or is it better to have 6 small meals, throughout your day? Then you see intermittent fasting where they say not to eat for 16 hours and eat 1 or 2 larger meals in 8 hours. What's sort of your opinion on that?
Sure. That's a great question. Years ago, it used to be the 6 meals, spread out throughout the day. The current, push now is this intermittent fasting, etc. I think the most important thing is, Ricardo mentioned before too, is the mindful or intuitive eating, when you're hungry. I do believe that you should have around 12 hours between your last meal and your next meal. Give your body a chance to, even out, get back to normal and so forth. But for someone who isn't eating until 2 in the afternoon and they start work at maybe 9 in the morning, that's not great. Your body needs fuel. Your brain needs fuel to get going. But saying that too, there's no reason you need to eat at 10 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning and then get up at 8 and eat again. So that 12 hours of time between your last meal and your first meal is a good idea. I truly believe that. And studies show that people have a better time losing weight and maintaining weight, et cetera, with that. I don't like to put restrictions on eating if not knowing someone, because they may be dealing with some eating issues too. And this may give them a license not to eat. As far as the 6 small meals a day, that's really tough if we live in a busy world. Do you have time to eat every so often? I don't. But at that same hand, for instance, today I have this talk at 12 and I have something else at 1. So at 11:30, I wasn't ready for lunch, but I had a banana because I know that if I waited until 2 to eat, I was going to be really hungry and I was going to make bad choices. So I think you look at your life like that a little bit too. If spreading your meals out works for you, great. If not, eat your different meals, but to have that time between your last and your first meal, I think is a good idea as well.
It's really funny you said that, because I tried to get lunch before this too, because I have this and then something at 1 as well. But I think I can eat during that, so I think it's okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if the videos are going to be on or not. So I'm like, let me get that banana in.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, it's the times in which you can eat, like as consistent as you want to make it, it might change every day. So you have to like at least be a little flexible and like forgiving with yourself.
Exactly. The more rules you put on yourself, you're going to not follow them, and then you're going to feel bad. You shouldn't feel bad about eating. We shouldn't feel guilt from eating. Eating should be enjoyable. It should just be something that's part of your life. You're going out with, family or friends for a special occasion to a really great restaurant, indulge. Eat a lot more than you usually do. Get back to habit the next day because you enjoy those times. That's what we're about. When people sometimes say too, "Oh, do you have any healthy recipes for Thanksgiving?" I'm like, no, because nothing's better than my family's traditional food. But the rest of the time or the rest of the year, I'll eat healthy. So don't be so tough on yourself. Enjoy it. But it's what you do every day. I have less patience with someone who pulls a Pop-Tart out for breakfast than I do for someone that overindulges when they're out with their family or friends. Because that Pop-Tart was a choice. You could have had something healthier. You're not getting that enjoyment out of it. Think about the enjoyment that you get by eating those traditional foods with your family than you would from just having that Pop-Tart on the way out the door.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. The food with family is definitely enjoyable as long as you're not arguing too much during Thanksgiving.
True.
Yeah.
That's a whole other topic. You have to have someone come in and talk about.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, but thank you so much for a fantastic Q&A session here. This has been great.
Oh, thank you, Sean, for your insightful questions. They were wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All
thank
right,
you,
talk to you
Sean.
guys later.
You guys. Bye. I think I do have one random question. Well, it wasn't random because I know someone was trying to ask that at like other workshops we've had, because supplements always comes up and then there's no hard and fast rule for it. So then no one gets like the answer they want. But if you want to try and take a shot at like giving some advice, that'd be cool.
Sure. What I would say is the only supplement, okay, there's a few things as far as supplements. Some people want to know about protein supplements. I'm not sure what is meant by supplements. So I'm just going to
I think supplements meant like anything but protein. Like I think that's straightforward, but I think they meant like, any vitamins and minerals and stuff.
Okay, good. Very good. Multivitamin, good idea. Okay. High dosage of individual vitamins, not so good an idea. They have to go through your liver, and some are stored as fat soluble vitamins and they can damage your liver in high amounts. Other, if you take above what you need, they're just going to be urinated out and you're wasting your money. There's a few things though that I do recommend. I recommend a multivitamin. I think it's a great insurance for what we, having a good diet. So there's nothing wrong with the multivitamin. I think a probiotic is a good idea. And I think that a good fish oil is a good idea as well. Those are the only 3 things that I would recommend. Now, there's a lot of research that's coming out right now about vitamin D and low levels of vitamin D. So if you get your blood taken and your levels are really low, then you want to take a vitamin D supplement. Okay. Think about when you're getting your blood taken though. Vitamin D is a sunshine vitamin. We get it from the sun. So your vitamin D levels will probably be highest in the summer or early fall. However, if you get your vitamin D taken in sometime around November and it's, dipping low, you may need to take a vitamin D supplement. The research coming out right now shows that it's really important to have good amount of vitamin D. Other than that, multivitamin should have iron in it. Okay. It'll have all those other nutrients you need. Single nutrients do not have any effect or scientific effect, evidence-based effect on anything, unless your doctor tells you to take something. Okay. Sometimes with supplements, I'll say, what are you taking? They'll say, I'm taking this for this. I'm like, well, why? There's really no great research that you need these individual supplements there. Probiotic, yeah, I think that's good. A lot of times when people aren't regular, they're having problems with bloating, a probiotic is great. Fish oil, we tend not to get enough seafood in our diet, and fish oil is really good for a lot of different things besides just heart health. It's good for mental health as well. So I think that's nice. And a multivitamin. Doesn't have to be an expensive one. Spectrovite from CVS, name brand, is great. So those are the 3 things that someone said to me, what should I do? I'd recommend.
Nice. And do you want to speak about probiotics versus prebiotics?
Sure. Prebiotics we get from our foods. Prebiotics are basically in fruits, vegetables, and fermented items. So if you like kimchi and some miso soup, sauerkraut, you're in luck. That's where we get our prebiotics. Prebiotics feed the probiotics. So probiotics are basically in our fibrous containing foods as well. And probiotics basically feed your microbiome to keep you, quote, regular and keep your microbiome intact, they're saying. And especially after, you probably have heard too that, you know, if you're on antibiotics, you clean out your system. It's the worst thing that can happen because now it's not normal flora. You're more susceptible to certain illnesses. So probiotics bring that back to normalization again. So after being on antibiotic, probiotics are great. Probiotics are great if your diet's been off a little bit. So that's something too you can take and not take again. I just think they're great to take on a regular basis, keeps you regular, and again, keeps your microbiome intact too.
Thank you for sharing that. That's
Yes, thank
really
you.
clear clarification. Yes.
Good.
Do we have other questions?
I have like a selfish question, but I don't know. You don't have to answer it.
That's
That
cool.
my mother-in-law keeps bugging me right now about canola oil, and I just haven't looked into it myself yet because like I have way too many other things to be looking into. But have you heard of any issues with? Because from my understanding in my undergrad, like that was a great oil source, you know, but that I just can't like if I'm not bringing my own information to the table, I'm not even gonna get bothered. So have you heard anything negative about canola oil?
No, things haven't changed about canola oil. It's has mostly monounsaturated fats, which is great. I think what you need to explain to your mother-in-law is that look at the oil she's having to make sure that it's mostly canola oil, because a lot of times oils are a mixture, and canola oil could be mixed with corn oil, which is more of a polyunsaturated fat. Nope, canola oil is still a great oil.
Perfect. Great.
One oil that I think is a little better than canola is avocado oil, but it's a little bit more expensive. So I like avocado oil because it's even higher in monounsaturated fats. It's very similar to an olive oil, but has a high smoking point, which means you can fry with it and you won't break down the bonds to make it more rancid tasting. So avocado oil is my top. Canola, I love olive oil for everything else. I'm a big olive oil fan, but you can't fry with that. You can't use it at high temperatures.
The feedback she was more so saying was a part of the like creation or extraction of oil, that process. Yeah, I don't really know specifics about it, but happy to hear that you were on board with canola oil. So thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Even though it's extracted in different ways, the base of it still has a lot of monounsaturated fats compared to corn oil, safflower oil, those other oils that are there. It's a much better source. These are great questions. Sometimes I love when I'm like picking my brain here with different things all over the place, which is great.
Yeah, it came out really great. So I'm thinking maybe next time we can have another one.
Sure. No, this was great. I'm really glad I didn't just give a presentation. I really liked the questions and just the dialogue back and forth. As I said before, we're all just zoomed out. And my next 2 meetings in the afternoon are all going to be Zoom. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do we have other questions? If not, I don't want to hold Dr. Policastro more time. I hope we can have like a wonderful meal after the meeting. And thank you for being here, Dr. Policastro. And
My
thank
pleasure.
you so much. Yeah.
Good to
Thank
see
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
Bye.
Good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Hey,